Good morning, Americans. Or evening, Americans. This is your favorite alien and Bubba. Here on the evening of Thursday, May 13th, 2021, sitting in for Paul Harvey. Stand by for the rest of the story. Well, the rest of the story started last week when all the restrictions started to be loosened, especially for people who live in a place like I do in Atherton Place, being an old guy. And I went to get some stuff for me and my wife at Walgreens in Kennesaw, Georgia. Well, I was there getting ready to pay for my stuff, and this group of African Americans were in front of me, and they were having a heated discussion about George Floyd. And this one guy looked back at me and he says, "Well, see, they got everything," meaning the whites. They get everything handed to them, and they get no answers to everything. And he just kept on putting his eyes every time he mentioned whites. He would talk in my direction and look at me. And I said, "Hold on a second here. What makes you think I'm white? Do I look white to you? And what are you saying about whites?" And he says, "Oh, well, they get everything." He says, "I've been discriminated against, and in my home country too, by Americans. Both you guys and black and whites were discriminating against me." "But what do you mean that the whites get everything?" "Oh, well, everything is theirs. Santa Claus is white. Jesus Christ is white." And I said, "What gives you that opinion that Jesus Christ is white? He wasn't even European." "Well, if you look at all the photos and paintings, they paint him." I said, "Yeah, Jeffrey Hunter, right?" "Yeah, King of Kings." And that's where you're getting your assumptions from. And he says, "What, you know something different?" I says, "Well, I come from another planet. But my host here that passed away, and I got all his memories. And the country that he's from, Panama, which I'm a resident alien here, illegal alien and resident alien, I can tell you a thing or two. There's a lot of countries on this planet that have the same situation. Philippines has one, and other countries have the same thing. But unlike the other countries, Panama is a unique country." And he says, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, you talk about Jesus Christ." He says, "Yeah. And you're saying he's white?" He says, "Yeah. Well, let me tell you a story that happened in my host country of Panama way back in the 17th century, supposedly. Okay? And there's no confirmation of the story because it's been told from hand to hand, but this is the way it went. I said, "You can look it up. You got access to a phone. Look this up." The Panama at the time in the 17th century, that's 1600 to 1699, was ruled by Spain. And this is in the early 17th century, so it must be between 1700 and 1720. And years before that, Sir Francis Drake from Queen Elizabeth's time would make raids on the fort of Portobello, which translated into English means beautiful port, because that was a port that the Spanish would come in to load all the things from Peru and South America, all the gold that was going on there. So sometime between 1600 and 1620, so the story goes, there was a ship that came in bearing a statue, life statue, about 6 foot tall, wooden statue too. And it was in a coffin. The only thing is, This ship, when it got into Portobello, I don't know where it's going with that coffin, but once it got loaded up, it couldn't leave Portobello because the weather got terrible. And the shipmates and the crew, even the captain, started to think that it's a demonic. Whatever the statue was made, and the story goes it was made in Spain. Okay? Anyway, they got so superstitious on this statue that they threw the coffin overboard. And the weather improved and the ship left. The coffin was found in the shores of Portobello, was taken to Nombre de Dios, a church that was built by the Spanish in 1589 around there. It's now just in tatters because of Henry Morgan back in 1670. But from 1589 to 1670, this statue was venerated at that church. When Henry Morgan came calling in 1671, the people took that statue out of there. And from 1671 to 1814, nobody knew anything about that statue. In 1814, they rebuilt a church next to the Nombre de Dios church and called it San Felipe Church. And lo and behold, the statue came back. And since 1814, it's been a Nash church. Unbeknownst to everybody, the statue was venerated from 1589 to 1670 by the local population. And I don't mean the Spanish. There's some that venerated it, but not all Spanish agreed. Okay, they thought it was a bad luck statue. But it seems like whoever this statue touched, according to the stories that I found, grew up and got better, and their lives were improved. And starting in 1814, the statue was taken out of the coffin that it was, put into the altar, and they were robes that were done for it. And each time a robe was done, they would keep it in the church. Now there's a museum with all the robes. There's 60 of them now. But this statue changed robes twice a year. Once on Easter, Holy Week, starting with Palm Sunday to Easter, and the next time for its day that the church, local church gave it to it, October 21st. The day of Christ, of this Christ. And like I said, look it up. And there's a lot more of statues like this, but this is, as they call it in my home country of Panama, Cristo Negro, meaning Black Christ. El Negrito, yeah, which is a derogatory word, but it's considered, for him, it's considered a favorable, not derogatory. El Negrito. And each October 21st, you see a lot of people processing all through the Portobello area of Panama, the Black Christ. And these are not black people. These are mestizos, some Spanish, Panamanians of all incomes, of all sets, and of all lines. Get together for that. I never went over there because I was on the Pacific side. I never saw him in person. Never went to Portobello. But the people that have gone there every year, they go there for El Cristo Negro. So there is a Black Christ. And it has quite a following, not only from Panama itself, but from the other Central American countries around there, Costa Rica, El Salvador, they all make the trip down to see the Black Christ. This is something that you African Americans should be looking at. And there's other Black Christ around. Like I said, Philippines has a version. I don't know their story completely, but they do. So when you start talking about George Floyd and your Black Lives Matter, and that we are the only pigmentation, not race, because you're not a race, you're a pigmentation, same as me, that is getting picked on. Well, the Palestinians can say the same thing, the Israelis can say the same thing, because they're getting picked on by Hamas, and they're picking on Hamas. The Indian Sikhs can say the same thing because the other Indian groups are getting them to. India, and just think of the untouchables. Even though the caste system has long been gone, it's still around because the people still adhere to the caste system. So you see what I mean, African Americans. As an alien from another planet, the idea of Christ being for everybody, somebody had it because somebody did the statue back. How old was the statue when it was included in that box? Nobody knows. But it's at least over 500 years. At least that. Where it came from? Well, someplace in Spain is the story I get. But you see, it's an all-inclusive situation here. And this is what you got to do. If Jesus Christ was really real and he was here, he included everybody, including the Jews and all the other denominations that didn't even know about him, because he considered that one race, human race. But you guys never heard that teaching, and you still haven't. So this is the story of the Black Christ from my hometown of Portobello. Never been there. I grew up almost 1,500 miles southwest of Portobello. And I grew up in the Panama Canal Zone, which was about 50 miles south of Portobello. I've been in the area to Colon and Cristobal, but I've never been to Portobello. Anyway, sitting in for Paul Harvey this evening, this is your favorite alien and Bubba. Good day.